Welcome to Rooted and Ready from Annie's Project, where we share real conversations about agriculture, resilience, and the people who keep it moving forward. I'm your host, Karisha Devlin. I'm a farmer and training and curriculum officer with Annie's Project. If you've ever survived a county fair week, you already know it's equal parts excitement, exhaustion, pride, and controlled chaos. Between early mornings, late nights, forgotten supplies, livestock care, judging schedules, and trying to keep everyone fed, it can feel like an Olympic event for parents. Today we're talking about how to make Fair Week a little smoother and maybe even a little more enjoyable. Joining me is Clemmie Baginski. Clemmie wears a lot of hats. She's the Administrative Marketing and Communication Associate with Annie's Project and is the pivotal person behind the scenes with our podcast. She takes care of all the editing and posting. So I'm really glad to have her on the other side of the podcast joining me for this conversation. Additionally, Clemmie is a Mississippi State University Extension agent with 4-H responsibilities. She grew up on a livestock farm, is a fifth generation farmer, and now helps young people develop leadership skills through 4-H. She also understands firsthand what families experience during fair season. Clemmie, welcome to Rooted and Ready.
Thanks for having me, Karisha. I'm glad to be here on this side of it this week.
Well, again, I'm really looking forward to our conversation. As well as I think a lot of our listeners across the country, am smack dab in the middle of a busy fair and livestock show season. And I don't think it matters whether you're kind of a first time parent to fairs or you're kind of a seasoned parent. I think there's something that everybody could pick up from our conversation today. So to get started, for our listeners who may be newer to 4-H or may just kind of be starting into showing animals and so forth, uh, what makes it such a memorable experience? And for those listeners in particular, I can relate because I was a town girl, did not grow up in 4-H or showing animals. So when my kids got into it was uh, really a whole new world, so to speak.
I grew up in 4-H. I exhibited livestock. I participated in the exhibit hall. My particular 4-H club did the concession stand as part of our fundraisers for the year. So I had several shifts there throughout the week. And now as an extension agent, I'm on the backside of it. But for newer 4-H families, I think what's so special about Fair Week is this is maybe not necessarily your first time to be with like-minded folks in your project area, but this is like your reunion time. So you work hard all year on your projects, and fair season is when you get to come together. You get to show off what you've done, and your friends and family members that are there get to see what you've done away from the folks that might not be involved at your barn. But you just get to show off for a little while. And especially when kids from other clubs and other counties get to be there, you get to have camaraderie with them, sharing your experiences. They share their experiences with you. A lot of times during fair weeks, you always learn something new. And if you're not paying attention to what's around you.
So you shared that you grew up as a youth exhibitor and now you're an extension professional. How has your perspective changed?
Oh man, behind the desk during fair season is completely different than being in the ring during fair season. So as a kid, I was thinking back on some of my memories for this podcast, and I thought, we just show up one day, we roll in, we show, and then we go home and we think, well, that one's done. And then now as a professional behind the scenes putting it on, it is a full event, a full show. Um, and it always starts when the first county fair in Mississippi kicks off. So we're in the middle of our show season right now. There's been about four counties that have had theirs, and there's still about four or five more to go. And luckily, I'm at the end of that. So once the other shows kick up, it's my reminder, hey, you've got a show coming up. It's time to
Hmm.
get ready. So fair season in Mississippi runs for about 2 solid months. And as a professional on the backside, we prep for about 2 solid months. So me and my volunteers, we're recruiting sponsors. to make those prizes memorable for the kids that are in the ring. We're ordering those prizes. We're recruiting judges to come spend a day with us. We're getting volunteers to help run the ring and move smoothly. So it's really been a change of scenery from that one day you pull in with your trailers and show and go home to now I'm spending 12 weeks on fair stuff. So it's really been a perspective change moving behind the desk.
And I appreciate you sharing that because I think it's a good reminder for everyone to be respectful of those who are helping to get these fairs and livestock shows running and keeping them going smoothly because I think people forget that. They forget about all the work, all of the hardships that's going on behind the scenes. And
Yeah,
so,
absolutely. And it's not just the agent, the 4-H agent or the ag agent that day. They're representing the extension office. I have a whole team of
right.
parents and volunteers
Mm-hmm.
that are, helping out with what their kids show. So I have one family that's helping out specifically with the dairy goat show, and they're handling a lot of what goes on with that. And then I have another group of families that are handling the beef show. It's a little bit bigger, so there's a few more folks involved there. But we have a whole team behind us supporting us, and it really does take about three good months to put together
Mm-hmm.
a good show.
Yes. So please take the time to thank those volunteers and the extension personnel, everyone, the judges, everyone that's helping to keep those shows going. So, what do you think parents often underestimate before Fair Week begins?
Especially with my newer families, I think the biggest shock maybe is the pace of the day,
Hmm.
especially if they've never went to a fair to watch before. So of course every fair has its own timeline, but like at my particular county fair, each animal has one day. So you come in midday that morning, you show and you go home that afternoon. So once we get rolling with the show, it's pretty constant. And you really have to be paying attention to the program and what time of day it is and what animals you have and where they're at in the program. So it can get pretty fast paced pretty quickly, without you acknowledging that things have sped up in the day. Because, morning times are usually pretty relaxed when you're getting your animals ready and kids are getting ready for the show. But once that show starts, it can gear up pretty quickly.
I want to talk a little bit about preparing for the fair. And when my kids first started showing, I was a little bit surprised about just everything that we needed to have together. And that first year, I learned some hard lessons, especially when going to the state fair, because it's a little easier when you're in your county and you're close to your home. But when you're or in another county or, halfway across the state and you're like, oh, I did not bring this, and you're constantly having to run to a store or borrow those items from somebody. So I've kind of made my own, learned from my mistakes, but I still, every year, I feel like I'm adding something to my list. Remember this for next year. So I've heard some people say that Fair Week usually can start weeks or even months before that first day as far as preparation wise. What preparations can make the biggest difference?
Oh, this is a good one. So when I was showing, I had a practice mock show in my barn morning and evening every day for about a week and a half before my first big show. Like I said, here in Mississippi, once we start show season, we go for a good 2.5 months. We're usually somewhere every other weekend. But before you get to that first one, it's your responsibility to be show ready with your animals, right? So my biggest advice for youth and livestock projects are to have a show at your house at least once a day. That means brush them down, get them ready, groom them, see how long it takes you to get them fitted out for a show. Make sure all of your halters or equipment is presentable, right? Because when we get to showmanship, we want to see how well you present your animal. And if you have this beat up show stick that doesn't work properly anymore, maybe you need to work on either straighten it out or get you one that's just for the show ring. Leave
Mm-hmm.
one for the barn and one for the show ring. But have a mock show every day at your house. This is going to help you not only get comfortable with your animal and get comfortable with how they move, but your animal will pick up on what they're supposed to do. So if you ever watch those older kids in showmanship and you think, man, their animal is on top of it, I promise you they've put in the hours in the barn at home. So that's my first tip to kids with their animals is have a practice show every day at your house. But after that, like you said, make a checklist. Make sure that your show box is filled with everything you needed to get ready for your practice shows at home. Have it there in the barn with you. If you take something out, you put it right back in. If you use something from off the shelf in the barn, put that in your box because you may want it on show day. When it comes to your show clothes, I always tell my kids, have your favorite outfit there ready to go, but put a spare in there because you never know what's going to happen. I can remember one rainy season, I was at a county fair and I slipped and slid down the hill and I had mud all down my back. And I had to go change into that not so favorite outfit because it happened before the show. Like I was coming back to the barn from getting ready and I thought, well, great. Now I've got to start all over. But I had an extra set of clothes. So make sure that you have that extra set of clothes just in case. And then the other thing would be to make sure you know where you're going. If you've never been to that fairgrounds, especially, make sure that you either plugged it into your GPS and it actually gets you there, or you look up directions online to make sure that you actually get there. And if your directions seem not so great from the internet, call the extension office or the fairgrounds there, whoever's at that physical location. They'll be happy to give you directions, but make sure you know where you're going.
Absolutely. I think just knowing that can take a lot of stress off of you. Just so you know which entrance to go into, you
Mm-hmm.
know where you're supposed to go to unload the animals, and
Yeah.
absolutely. Anything else that you would add on that checklist for families?
I think this is more just general and not show related, but um, most folks are in county fair season right now, the dead heat of summer, right? So pack you a cooler and snacks.
Mm-hmm.
Most places will have some sort of concessions or at least drinks available, but if they don't, you don't want to be unprepared. So have you a cooler with waters and drinks and some snacks there. Um, and just think about the heat. So a lot of parents will be focused on getting the kids ready, getting the animals ready, but don't forget about the rest of your crew there. Make sure that you're taking care of yourself as well. So even though we're there for the kids to show, we don't want anybody to have a heat stroke while we're there having a good time. So make sure you have those waters and those snacks there for you and your family.
I think that's really important because it does get really, really hot. I know we ended up just this last year, we purchased some fans that we could, portable fans, because especially at the state fair, it's pretty stifling. And that those were really helpful to all of us because when you're sitting around in the barns and you're waiting and sometimes air is not flowing through. So that's one thing that we learned the second year to make sure to make that investment, just to have a couple, because we already had fans for our animals, but you're not thinking about, yourself, and that you're sitting there and it's really, really, really hot.
Absolutely. And another thing I'll add is to go ahead and throw some like camping chairs in there, some
Mm-hmm.
lawn chairs in there. Most places will have bleachers around the show arena, but you may not have access to seating out at the barns where your livestock is being stalled at. So throw a couple of extra chairs just for you and your folks to hang out while you're waiting on the show.
What are some top survival tips for parents? Because as we've already discussed, well, to be frank, it can be very stressful. There's a lot of emotions going into the day, a lot of stressful feelings, just, getting there, getting your kids ready, getting your animals ready. So, what are some things that can help make it run a little smoother?
Absolutely. You used a term in the intro and I really loved it, controlled chaos. And that's what it boils down to. You can have everything prepped and ready at home, and when you get there, it's just like bam, here it all blows up in smoke. But the thing I tell all of my families is today's just one day. It's one judge, it's one man's opinion. Um, and it's going to be okay. At the end of the day, the worst they can do is tell you no. You know, they're not going to eat you. You're not going to die from this experience. Um, Hopefully you learn something for next week when you roll out to the next county fair, but it's going to be all right. I promise. We take it all in stride. Um, and it's the kids' livestock project, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's not a end all be all decision that has to come to today. We just take it in stride and try better next weekend. You know, now you know what to expect for the rest of the show season, at least on the county level and local level. Um, but I think you're right about it being different from county to state fairs, and it's always a little bit of a learning curve. But at the end of the day, the kids are having a blast. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what, at least from the agent side now, that's what I want to see. I want to see the kids having a great time with their livestock projects in the barn with their friends, helping them out, learning the soft skills. Um, is what I try to get parents to remember, that even though we may not have got the champion banner with our bull or with our market goats, you know, it's going to be okay. Your kids learn so many soft skills today in the process.
Absolutely. I think one of the biggest lessons at the fair isn't about animals. It's really about life.
Mm-hmm.
And as parents, I think it's also a good reminder for us and to be as parents, it's a good reminder for us and for us to also control our emotions, our feelings about it because let's be frank here. There's a lot of money that can go to the fairs and the show animals. And I think we have to take a step back sometimes and just remind ourselves what it really is about. It's not about winning. It's not about, placing at a certain level. It's about those life lessons that your kids are going to be faced with, that they're going to um, be able to make and to learn from. So, how should parents help children handle some of these different things? And I'm just going to kind of rattle through them and then we can talk about them. But the disappointment, because not everybody is going to get a ribbon or a banner. Not placing where they hoped. That's a big one. That's one that I went through just this last week. One fair, my son did well. The next fair, a different judge, he didn't do as well. His sister actually did better than him, which was probably a bigger blow than, another kid placing better than him. Making mistakes in the show ring because they're continuing to learn and grow there, and then comparing themselves to others. So I'm throwing a lot of those questions at you, Clemmie, but I know that you've dealt with all of them personally when you showed, but also seeing the kids you work with dealing with those.
Sure. So I'm going to take those last 2 points together because I
Sure.
like to pair those with showmanship because that's about the kid presenting their animal. Um, so making mistakes in the ring is not going to be the end of the world. Will that bump you down a place or two? Maybe if he sees you, but or if the judge sees you, but he or she may have 20 other kids in the ring they're looking at that
Hmm.
time. So just because you make one mistake, it's not going to be the end of the world. And if he or she does see you, the judge, work harder to fix it the next time you go stop and set up. Um, Make sure that you're doing what you can, but don't make yourself sick over a mistake that happens. And don't compare yourself to someone else either, because let's say your animal is hot and tired and they're having a really rough day since they've been waiting out in the barns in the heat all day and they're just over it already before the show gets started. Well, maybe your neighbor's heifer is fine. She's doing what she was trained to do. Don't compare yourself to another exhibitor
Hmm.
because sometimes those animals play a big part in that too.
Hmm.
And especially in your classes where they're evaluating your livestock and not necessarily showmanship, don't compare yourself to someone else because that has nothing to do with you. That's on your animals.
Right.
You're just a facilitator there. You're just leading in that class, but don't compare yourself to other folks, especially in your market or breeding classes, because that's not anything to do with you. work on showmanship and be proud of your performance and
Mm-hmm.
showmanship. When it gets to not placing where you'd hope, my favorite line is it's one person's opinion. It's one judge this week. The odds of you seeing that judge later in the show season this year are slim to none. So if you don't like the way you place today, especially in those market classes or breeding classes, it's okay. You're going to see a new judge next weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And they may have something completely different to say about it. And they may love the things about your animal that this judge maybe didn't like about it at all. So it's okay if you get some bad remarks this weekend. Next weekend's a new ball game. And as far as the disappointment, I think this comes into those soft skills that we talked about earlier. Life isn't sunshine and roses all the time. And I'd much rather have my children or my 4-Hers learn that it doesn't always go my way
Mm-hmm.
with something that they're directly involved with, and they can have a reason and it kind of explain it to them that way and from the showroom perspective, than something that's completely out of their control, something that's completely new to them, something they don't understand. I'd rather it be something in their wheelhouse that they know what's going on and they can kind of justify these outcomes. Um, but in the same stance, when we're dealing with disappointment, we should also be happy for our friends who did well that day. So that comes to that other side of the soft skills where we can be gracious losers, but we can also be supportive friends to our other 4-H club members or folks from the next county that are having a great day at our shows. So I think I kind of went all the way around the world with all that, but that's kind of how I walk through it now as an agent and how my
Mm-hmm.
family walked through it when I was showing as well.
Yeah, no, I think that's great advice. And you're absolutely right about being a gracious loser. That's something that I really taught to my kids about. Like, congratulate the person that won. Congratulate those around you that placed well, above you, or even the ones maybe that placed below you. Just say, "Hey, you did a great job," but just be an encourager and be a good sport about it, because as you said earlier, you're seeing the same kids. These are kids that you're around at all of these different fairs, and that the ones maybe that did better from you, maybe there's things you can learn from them that they can help you improve. And then I
Absolutely. There's a
always,
lot of chatter that happens in the waiting line
yes,
to go into the
yes,
ring. And so if you see something that your friend is doing especially well, encourage your kids to ask them about it. Like, hey, how
mm-hmm,
do you get your animal to do that? What are you doing
right,
at home to get this outcome?
yeah,
And another thing that took me a while to learn, and I was already, aged out of 4-H and into colleges, there are always little eyes watching the big kids.
yes,
So be somebody that you would be proud that they look up to as a role model.
mm-hmm, yeah,
Um, a colleague of mine, when I started interning with Extension and shadowing with Extension, she told me, she's like, my kids loved you in the barn. I'm like, I didn't even know your kids knew my name in the barn. There was 7 years between us. She's like, oh no, they were watching. They watched
oh,
everything the big kids did, and you were one of their favorites. And I'm like, oh, well, I wish I would have known that then, because I'm not sure I was always on my A game to be a role model. She's like, no, you were there. They loved it.
oh,
So reminder to the big kids in the barn, the littles are always watching.
yeah,
So be
that's a
someone
great
they'd be
reminder.
proud to follow in their footsteps.
Yeah, that's a great reminder. One of the things that I also have a conversation with my kids about is, you either win or you learn.
Mhm.
So don't think about this as losing. You're learning, you're improving, you're continuing to grow. And one of the things I love about 4-H is that it really teaches more than livestock. It really teaches more about whatever 4-H project that you're exhibiting. What life skills are kids really developing during Fair Week?
Absolutely. So we've kind of talked about some of them in passing, but empathy for others,
Hmm.
especially when we're being a gracious loser and we're having to congratulate our friends, we're learning those empathy skills and how to control our emotions a lot of the times. But apart from that, responsibility,
Hmm.
right? So in most cases, the kids are the ones responsible for their projects. They have to get up and go feed in the morning. They have to execute the exercise routines. They have to work with this animal so it behaves well in showmanship. It's really their responsibility to make sure their projects are show ready, but also determination, right? So you can go out there and you can dump a scoop of feed, or you can sit there and say, hey, how are my animals, developing on this feed? Do I need to make a change? How is my exercise routine really working for us? Do we need to make a change? And if they don't have that drive, that's okay. Some folks just like to be out in the barn. They just like to participate. But some of these kids are really going to find their determination and they want to be at the top of the class, whether it's in their showmanship class or their breeding and market classes. They want to be at the top and they're going to do what it takes within their ability to be at the top. Another thing is public speaking. So we don't think about speaking a lot during the show because you don't talk a lot as an exhibitor in the show, but the judge does come around and he will ask you questions, especially during showmanship. And that was one of the things that I prided myself on as an exhibitor. I may not always had the champion animal later in the show, but I was doing my hardest to be a top 5 showmanship kid. And there was one year we shuffled, me and 4 kids, we took turns earning the buckle each week, and we just flip-flop 1 through 4. And our parents would all kind of sit on the sidelines and they'd be watching and they'd tell each other who had it that week and just knew who was on a good week and who was on an off week. But public speaking, once we get to talking to the judge about our animals, we can talk to a lot of folks about things we're comfortable with, but talking to that stranger is something different. And being able to confidently tell them about our project. So I always think that public speaking slides in there under the radar, but those are just a few of them. There's a lot more out there, but those are the biggest ones that I see, both as an exhibitor out of the ring and as an extension agent from behind the scenes. That's what I see a lot of happening.
Years later, what do you think young people remember most about Fair Week?
Well, I kind of told on myself right here. That summer that it was me and 4 of my friends flip-flopping in showmanship. That's a core memory I have. Those lineup chats that we have waiting for our turn to go in the ring. There was lots of fun things happening there. But I think it's the camaraderie between other folks in your project area, even if they're not in your club, especially at state fair when everybody kind of gets together and you get a chance to catch up with folks who don't live near you. I think it's just the camaraderie between other 4-H and FFA members in your project area.
So I'm going to ask you a few lightning round questions. Just
Okay.
kind of a short answer, a one-word answer. What do you think the most forgotten item is?
Part of your clothing, either a belt, boots, a collar, button-down shirt. I think it's something in your show attire.
What would be your best fair snack?
I'm a sucker for nachos.
I think everybody is. The fake cheese. There's whatever they put into that is addictive. What is one item every parent should pack?
Oh man. I don't know. Let's come back to that one.
What do you think the biggest lesson every exhibitor learns?
I think it's those hard losses. It's
Mm-hmm.
not, you can put as much work into it as you want to, and some days it's just not your day.
Yeah. So back to the one item every parent should pack. And this one is hard because I can think of a list of things.
I know there's so many things that could go wrong. For my parents, it was always the hairbrush and I wore a black ribbon over my ponytail in every show. But they kept it in the glove box of the truck we traveled in because I would not pack one. And after being in the wash rack all morning, I looked rough and I needed a hairbrush. So we learned to keep a spool of that ribbon and my hairbrush in the glove box of the truck so that we would always have it because that's one thing that I wouldn't pack. Now for boy moms, that is probably not an issue. But I think Karisha, I really don't know.
Well, I'm going to throw one out there. I would say wipes because
Yeah.
kids get so dirty, like you said,
Kids
in the
get
wash
dirty,
rack,
animals get dirty.
animals
I
get
kept
dirty.
wipes in my show box, but
Yeah,
sometimes you run out and you don't realize it. So yeah,
yeah.
maybe just like a mini
I,
show necessities, wipe,
yes,
spray, whatever you're
yes,
using. Maybe just keep that in your truck along with the hairbrush and the ribbon
yep.
for your kids too. But yeah, I think that's a good one. Wipes are pretty universal.
So we're coming to our last question. If you could leave every parent with one piece of encouragement before Fair Week begins, what would it be?
Take a deep breath. I know there's a lot of nerves right now, but like we said earlier in the podcast, this one county fair has one judge that you're probably not going to see for the rest of the show season. The worst they can do is tell you, no, you're not the grand champion. They're not going to eat you. And there's always something that you can take away from it. So, like you said to your kids, you're either winning or you're learning. If you're not taking away that champion ribbon, there's something that you can do differently next week. And a lot of times, if you'll hang back after the show, those judges will be more than happy
Mhm.
to discuss with kids, what they can do to get a step ahead. Um, so it's okay. Take a deep breath, go get them this week. And if you don't, you can try again next week.
I love that reminder because it is easy to get caught up in the placings and the schedules and everything else that has to happen during the week. But at the end of the day, Fair Week is really about helping young people grow into capable, confident adults. The banners fade, the ribbons get packed away, but those skills and memories last a lifetime. Clemmie, thank you so much for joining us and for everything you do to support young people and their families through 4-H.
Thanks for having me, Karisha.
Until next time, stay rooted and ready.